been thinking about how to make the most of this.
Hello, Amy. You okay? Oh, hang on. I'll mute you. There you go. You should be live now. If you can even hear me.
Yeah.
Excellent. Have you got any specific questions you want to ask why I'm here? Obviously, I'm trying to use this as more of a well, I say one-on-one, but anybody who's got any questions, anything particularly you want me to run through?
No.
How's yours looking so far?
It's alright, I think.
So, which bits have you got up to so far then? Have you got through? Have you done some of that PowerPoint I showed you the other day? Well, some of the sort of sections on that, or are you still working on the finances? Or
I'm on the finances bit, I think.
right, okay. So, do you want? I tell you what, if I show you something I created, I can send it over to you. Then you can actually use it. Then it should do all the maths for you. He says, famous last words. Just bear with me while I cut my screen share, and then I'll bang this over to you. Then you can actually use it. Then. I've made basically an accounts and cost calculator, which I designed for people who are going to go for distinction, in fairness, and that would include you. So um, hopefully you'll see my screen. You can see my screen now.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now what I did was I can send this over to you by, but basically any yellow box you have to bang in a number, and then it'll do all the maths for you. So like here, you've got your startup costs that you will have found out already for your business plan. Now again, this is just for my example. So obviously, I found out what fixtures and fittings were, and I did a bit of research, found 400 quid. I needed a till, which is 499 quid. A shop sign, obviously, there you go. And I needed window vinyl, beehives for my business, and I needed beekeeping kit. That all came from what I had calculated as my startup cost, if that makes sense. And then the way this model works, which is quite clever, he says famous last words. Angel's come on board. Hello, Angel. I'll just running through this, and is Angel going to speak to me? No, he's not.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Angel. There you go. You know, Angel, I was just saying to Amy that I'm running through this. I can send this to you as well. This is like a finance calculator, which works quite nicely. So the idea here is that you put all your startup costs in here, and obviously let me just change a number, for example. So this, I don't know, the beekeeping kit's going to cost a bit more money. So if I change it to 300, it will then obviously tell you what your total startup costs are. So you get a calculation, and then what you can do then is work out where you get your money from. So you can decide how much personal investment you want to put in. That's your choice. Obviously, think about it. The benefits of you investing your own money is that you're not going to pay any interest back on it. You're going to use your savings in theory. But what do you reckon the drawbacks are to using your own money?
I don't know.
Okay. What's the problem if you bang all your money in? What can you not do with it then?
Spend it.
Yeah. So basically, that's what it comes down to. You're ultimately saying, in other words, I'm going to use my money, and you're stuck with it. If that makes sense. You could go and ask family and friends for money. Now, there's normally an advantage of asking family and friends for money is what? What will they not typically want?
Interest.
Yeah, they won't want interest. They probably want it paying back, but they won't want interest. So you can obviously go and ask them. This is an interesting one, because I was talking to Macy about this, and she didn't know what it was. Do you know what a grant is?
What, like a grant to do with what?
In the sense of financial terms. So if I gave you a grant, what do I mean by that term?
Like some money.
Yeah. So basically, that's what it is.
I know what like a university grant is. I don't know what a financial grant is.
Yeah, you know what? It's a similar sort of thing, boys. Basically, they sometimes in some industries, I'm trying to think whether your businesses are compliant. There might be, in some town centres, for example, they give you grants, so the council might give you money to open up your business because you're going to create some jobs. Now, you can leave it blank by if you want to. You don't have to assume that. There's something called the Prince's Trust of it as well for young people sometimes. So they might give you money. That's free money. So the benefit there is it's free money. If you really want to, right, you can just put a number in. You can put like, I don't know, the government's going to give you 500 quid worth of money to open up in the town centre or whatever. Nobody's going to really tie you down to that. But then what it should do is it'll work out the difference between your startup costs and the money you're putting in and tell you how much basically you need to borrow from the bank. So you get a figure there. Now, this is where it gets clever because what it's trying to do effectively there is it's telling you how much you need to borrow. And then you can go and find out how much it will cost to borrow that money. And I can send you out a link, this Funding Circle website, and I suppose, I'm trying to think. Are you still seeing my spreadsheet now? Can you actually see has it gone to my browser?
Still see the spreadsheet.
Okay, right. I suppose I've got to be clever. I've got to swap something around here. So if I go, try to be clever, new share. Right. If I do that, share. Can you now see the website I've gone to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So the beauty of this website is, now I'll send you this link, but I'll bang it over to you. This website will basically tell you how much it costs to borrow. Now, of course, I'm not borrowing £5,000. I'm borrowing less than that. So you need to work. But obviously, let's just take it down to five. Let's assume I'm borrowing £5,000. It'll tell me then that I need to spend basically each month £155 to pay that loan back. So it's done the interest and all the rest of it and works out. Now you can work out how long you want to borrow it for. If you want to borrow it for 5 years, it costs you less, but obviously you're going to pay it back over a longer period of time. You know what? I don't mind. You can choose that yourself. You can make a decision on what you want to borrow. Let's assume in this case here, let's go 3 years, about £155. So what I would do then, and I'll switch back to what I just showed you a minute ago. So we'll go back to the spreadsheet one there. If you look on these yellow boxes down here, one of the boxes I've got here is monthly repayments. So what you do then is you just bang in this one here, 155, and it will then work out for your operating costs, because that's monthly, how much of your loan you're going to have to pay back, obviously, over the year. Then you've got a few other things. Now, I wouldn't change this, by the way. That's the gas and electricity cost, utility costs. I spelled that wrong, by the way. Utility. Yeah, it would help I could spell, wouldn't it? Let me change that. There you go. And this is everybody else's. Oh, no, I'm not cutting the spell there either. It's great, isn't it, when it does? Right, so you can see there that I've got utility costs, and that's obviously 0.73 pence, and that'll work out how many days you're open. So again, you've got to decide that. How many days a year are you open for? If you bang that number in, it will then calculate these utilities for you. So if you open more days a year, so if you open, I don't know, 240 days a year, you type it in there, it'll change your utility costs. Then it comes down to hourly wage. Same thing again. You can decide what you want to pay. What do you want to pay yourself per hour? You can decide you want to pay yourself more. So, I mean, you can look at the minimum wage and pay the minimum wage, or you could pay, I don't know, let's say you want £10.50 an hour. Type the number in, and then what it'll do is you set this thing down here. How many hours do you want to work each week? So you might, now most are doing it in hours, so everything works a bit more logical. So you might go, okay, I'm going to work 38 hours. So there you go. How many employees have you got? They'll count you as well. Let's say you employ another member of staff, 2 members of staff. There you go. You can see, look at that now. It's 38 grand. I'll put you a cost in here for mobile phone, broadband, and obviously phone. Whatever your phone contract costs. Let's change it to, let's ask Amy. Amy, how much you pay on your phone each month?
10 quid.
Right, so you pay 10 quid on your phone. Let's assume your broadband is 20 quid. So add them together, 30 quid. There you go. So that number in there. That's the cost you've got. Then we get down to the rental thing here. Now, this is where, again, we've looked at this, but you can put this number in what comes off the internet. So you see, it's all totally real at this point now. So then we're going down the route of, right, the cost of the building. So what I would do is I would go to another website, which I'll show you in a minute. I'm just going to find it, by the way. So I need to go to commercial property in Cheadle. There we go. Right, I'm going to swap the screen for you again. Right, so on Google, I've done a search literally for something called commercial property in Cheadle. Now, what that's done, dead simply, is it brings up the Rightmove website down there. If you click on that there, I might have to make sure it's Cheadle Staffordshire as well. There you go. Click again. Make sure you get the right one. that gives you all the properties that we've got in Cheadle, which you can rent. Now, you know which is best for you, or you could buy them. My favourite one's this one here, by the way, which I always take because I know where it is, and obviously it's in the town centre, and it's out. But you might, I know, let's go for a different one. You want to go here? I recognise that. Where's that? Oh, High Street. So you click on that there, and you'll notice there's a figure on it. It says per calendar month how much, so £710 per calendar month. Right, so if you want that building, what you would do then is you would go back to your spreadsheet and you would literally change that per calendar month to 710, click off it, and then it changes your rental figure. And then down here, you have one final bit of thing to do. How much does it cost you on average to make or purchase your stock, basically, or deliver to each customer? So let me give you an example here of a coffee shop. It's going to take something really simple like a coffee shop. So if I'm a coffee shop and I sell, so it's average cost to make it, basically, a cup of coffee. So let's assume, I don't know, you can get the maths here, but let's do one jar of coffee makes me 100 cups of coffee, and that jar of coffee costs me £5. That's 50 pence. That's 5p actually. 5p a cup plus milk. I know, let's work it out roughly. So I'm going to say the average, and again, it's guesstimation, but you can say the average cup of coffee is going to cost me 30p to make. I'm going to sell that average cup of coffee for, how much does coffee sell for in Costa these days?
Like £3.
£3.
It's
Okay.
like £2.70 something.
Okay, I'll tell you what, let's change it to 275. There we go. So I'm going to sell it at 275. So it's done this, and then all it comes down to there then is the one final question: how many cups of coffee do I want to sell each day on average? And I've got to make again, it all comes down to trying to make this averages at the end of the day. So I've got to try and think how many realistic I'm going to sell. Well, I reckon I could probably sell more than 50 cups of coffee a day on average. Because you think about it, that's 50 customers buying once, and some are buying more than once. So maybe I'm going to be more generous and say 60 a day. And what that does then is it gives you all the numbers you need. So it takes your rent, and it's worked out based on the number you got here. Your insurance, in fairness, I would leave around that amount of money. It is probably going to be realistic about that money. Your utilities have been calculated for you. Your wages are calculated by this section over here. So this bit here has done all your wages for you there. Your mobile broadband obviously been calculated by that one. Your marketing is your choice, by the way. Now, you can change that at a later date because you've got a marketing plan that you'll be developing. I'll talk to you more about it in a minute if you want me to. And then your cost of sales is how much does it cost you to make those products. So it's been calculated from this one here. So 60 cups a day, 30 pence obviously to make each one, and it's done by a yearly one. If you click up there, it shows you how it's been worked out, multiplied by the number of days you're open. See the calculator, that's the number of days. Oh, Amy's definitely got some banging beats on. And then then you've got your loan repayments which have been calculated for you, and that gives you total operating costs. Now, the difference here, by is they're one-off costs. So startup costs are the one-off costs to set this business up by. So they're like all the things you buy once to set it up. These are the costs that are going to go on every single day. That makes sense so far?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. As long as that makes sense, because that's great. People get a bit confused with it. Then down here, this is where your profit and loss comes in, and it's done it all for you. Revenue is the money going in. So that's calculated by, obviously, how many cups of coffee times by how much you charge for each one to your customers, times by how many days you open for. As you can see there, E15 there. And then it take away your cost of sales, which is calculated already, to cost to make the coffee. And you're making, basically in this business, £35,000 in profit when you just take away the cost of making coffee and obviously how much you make for selling coffee. Take away all your other operating costs. So all these things like rent, insurance, utilities, wages. So you've got 55,000. You can see there in this business, we have a problem. I'm making a loss. So something's got to give. Now you could start changing things here. Like, for example, that wage. Do I really need to pay that wage? Or can I pay a bit less? Can I pay $9.70, for example? So that brings it down a little bit. Do I really need 2 members of staff, or can I just get by with me on my own and I'll bring a part-time worker in? So you can see that I've suddenly taken it down. So just me working in the shop, and then look at that, I make a profit now. So you see how that does all the maths for you there. So that would be the profit you get to keep, by the way. That is the one you actually get to keep, your net profit. That's yours in the business. Ideally, you want that to be a profit. It's not the end of the world if it's not, if I'm being totally honest, because this is your first year of a business. And down here is quite clever. What this is doing down here is it's working out how many cups of coffee you have to sell basically to get a big fat zero. No profit and no loss. So in my business, I would need to sell 13,571 cups of coffee to basically get back to zero. So if I sell 13,572 cups of coffee, I make a profit. So it gives me like a target to aim for, if that makes sense. And that's why that we need to know that figure. So it's like so you can count how many cups of coffee you sell. So if I don't sell 13,571 cups of coffee in a year, I've got a problem. I'm not covering my costs and I make a loss. And that is basically the complex sort of maths done for you. But then you go one step further. But that's just, does that make sense so far by what I've just done there or not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you can do then is, and this sounds really strange because this is what the finance exam next year, by the way, we look at this in more detail, but that's your profit, by the way. Basically, that's working out your cost there, and obviously your profit down here. But you have something called cash flow. Now, cash flow is not your profit, right? Cash flow is money going into and out of your business. And you probably hear about this now with this coronavirus, because all these companies are starting to panic about whether they can pay the bills for their workers. They might make a profit, but whether they can afford to pay them. And that's because it's all about how much money comes in and goes out every single month. So you can see what I've got here is across the top here, you've got like startup costs. So obviously the month beforehand, month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5, and so on. And what it does is it picked all them numbers out from your previous calculations over here, what you've got over here. It's picked them numbers out of this sheet here, and it's put them into the right sections here. So you'll notice your startup costs only go there. They're only one off. They don't go anywhere else. That's obviously the reason. But you'll still pay rent, because remember, you're going to rent your building from day one. So you're still going to rent. You're probably still going to pay insurance. You're still going to probably have utilities, and you're probably going to have mortgage, salary, all the rest of it going in there. All right, if any of you are thinking of buying your building rather than renting it, then that would change to mortgage repayments. Are you thinking of buying? I can't remember. Or you're looking at
No.
renting? Okay, renting's fine because renting makes it nice and easy. But if you weren't, then we could look at that option there. Now, what you've got here is then this thing adds up basically all your inflow. So you can see in that month there, you've got £2,500 coming in, but you've got no sales happening because you're not selling any coffee because you haven't even started trading yet. And then down here, what you've got here is you've got all your outflows, money going out. And you end up with basically a sum of inflow there and outflow there. And that's bad. You can see that net monthly is basically exactly that. It's the inflow minus the total outflow. And you've got basically £5,000 more going out than coming in. And your bank account, because you're starting your business, has got a big fat zero. So that means at the end of the month, basically the end of the first month, you're going to close your bank account with a loss there. Now, in business, we use a certain type of loan for that. What's that sort? Do you know what that loan's called? The one where you borrow money from the bank for a short term. They give you a clue. It gives you an O.
No.
Never heard of it.
Overflow.
Not a million miles away, by the way.
No, I don't know what it
Overdraft.
is.
So you have an overdraft. So basically, you use what's called an overdraft there to actually, and the technical term is that you're using your overdraft or you are said to be overdrawn like that. So it's a problem, right? Because you're borrowing money from the bank. If you borrow money from the bank, what do you have to pay on that money?
Interest.
Yeah. And the banks, by the way, charge you an awful lot of money for borrowing that really quite a high interest rate. But if you think logically about it, it's not a bad thing because as long as you get your money back in the long run, you're okay. So if you look at my general trend of this business here, I start off borrowing that amount of money from the bank, but look where I end up down here. I end up borrowing less. But you could argue that's not a good business because you think, do I ever come out of that overdraft at this point in my first year? Do I ever come back out of my overdraft?
No.
No. So what you've got to think about there is there's a problem there. We need to do something about this. Somewhere along the line, we need to get more money coming in and less going out. And that can come down to planning your business finances. Now, some of that's going to come down to, if you think back over here, we're not making enough profit. We need to make more profit. I need to either sell more cups of coffee. So let's change this, boy. So I'm going to make more sales, 80 cups of coffee a day. Now look how that changes my finances. So if you look now, that's a fairly decent business. Okay, I need to borrow money from the bank now. No problem with that. But then look at this now. I'm now in a positive down here. And if you notice, the closing balance from that month becomes the opening balance from that month. Because obviously, logically, imagine that's January. You finish January there, you open in February there. Then you go to the end of February, and then obviously you start March, and so on. People get confused with that. But you see that that's a much better business. But you need to do a few changes here. Firstly, when do you want to spend your money on marketing? Remember, you're going to be I'll talk to you about more in a minute about marketing, but you're going to come up with a campaign and a plan to advertise. So I've assumed that you're spending 75% of your money at startup time. You might not be. You might only spend 50% of your budget there. And what you'll notice is, if you go over here, that's number one here, adds up to obviously the whole number. In that moment there, we need to make it add up to that. So let's say you spend 50% there, 10% there, 5%, 5%, and then you get into Christmas time again. So you're going to spend another 10, another 10% there. So what that does there is it moves the marketing budget around. So you notice down here where it says marketing, look, because you've got them percentage in there, them have gone blank now. You control that though. And the same thing with your sales. You might say that when you open your business, you're going to have more sales at the beginning. So let's say you think you're going to have 15% of your sales. When do coffee shops go quiet? I reckon they go quiet in the summer. Do they? I don't know. Or do they go quiet in...
I don't know.
I actually don't know when coffee shops go quiet.
Probably in the summer.
So I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll take that down to 5% there. And you can see now, look, as long as it adds up to 1 over there, it's still got it quite right. And actually, maybe if we took them down to 3 and 3 there, and 5 there, I've now got 4 to play with. So I could say at Christmas time, it's going to get busier. And you can see there, it's started to play with that. So these months here, look, I'm losing money in these months. Them months there, I'm losing money. I've got more money going out than coming in. So my outflows there are greater than my inflows. But not to worry, because look, I've got money in my bank account. My bank account has got money in, so it can cope with that. Does that make sense why it's quite a positive? And look at that there. That's even better now. This business here is only overdrawn literally in month 1. And that's not a problem by it. It's only a problem if it's all red like before. So if we went back to that model and I changed that number back down to 60, you'll see now. I mean, that's disastrous, really. You know, that's not a good business at all. Out of interest, I wonder if 70 would make it a bit... Oh, I can't type. There you go. 70, that might make it a bit better if I could type. Being special. There you go. So you can see that I need to borrow my... So this one here, then months when it goes quiet, I need to borrow money again and overdraft here. But again, it's not a problem because look, most of my months are black. So that's your cash flow. So then you've got... So you've now basically got all your startup costs that your business planner want. You've got all your operating costs that your business planner want. You've got your finance, your profit and loss, basically. Your gross profit and your net profit. You've got your break even, which your business plan wants. Remember, that's like numbers of cups of coffee or numbers of shoes sold. Yeah, he's trying to use some general terms. And then obviously you got your cash flow there, where you just change those numbers across the top. Does that make sense so far? Or have I talked gibberish and you want me to slow down?
It's fine.
What's Amy think?
It's alright.
You okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, just making sure on that one. So that's, and I'll send you that spreadsheet, but that spreadsheet can only be completed when you have one more sheet. Oh, the excitement. I can tell that you're like, wow. Don't all make the noise of woo, excitement. Woo. Okay, I won't bother. All right, so I've got a marketing sheet, which he says here, which I'm going to show you now. If I can actually find it. Typical that I can't find what I want. Oh, here we go. Got it. Right. So, you still see my spreadsheet, the other spreadsheet still at the moment?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got to do this then. Right. So, can you now see a new spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Excellent. This is your marketing plan. You are in charge. Remember, this is your business ultimately, and you've got to convince me that this is going to work. And you've thought about everything. And obviously, as well as the finances, it involves you thinking about the marketing and the advertising. So what I've created, and I can bang this over to you by no problem, is basically you've got, before you launch, your opening month, and obviously months, and I just did it 6 months going forward. You could do it a whole year if you really want to. And you've got to think about what methods of advertising you would use. Now, you don't have to use the same methods as me. right? This is what you think is going to work for your business. So I thought my business being a honey shop, selling organic honey, I actually thought that I'd take out advertising in a local newspaper, so the Chelan Teen Times, for example. And I said there what advertising I would do and the cost. Now, if you're not sure on the cost of something, because some of them are hidden away, I can help you. If you put it together, I would quite happily help you with the the cost that you might be looking for. But basically, I said that's 500 quid, which it would be. And then I've also said I'm going to have another full page advert. I'm going to do a 10% off. So you see there, that's basically £1,000 on newspaper advertising, but I'm not going to use it and then months there. Then I thought about discount coupons. I'm going to do one of those coupons, and I said, look, play 10% coupon, and obviously it's going to be 10% off my profits. Yeah, ultimately, let's be honest, I don't actually know how much it's going to cost me. I could probably work it out. I could say that, I don't know, 100 customers take it up, and I could work out a figure for that, but I just assume that you'll see later what I've done. I made an assumption on that one. And then I said here, gives every customer that comes in, obviously 10% off their next order if they spend more than 20 quid. And I just copy that across. That's going to be a constant offer that I'm going to run. And then the favourite one, social media. Now, what I probably should have said there was like things like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, what I'm going to use. I shouldn't probably name them, if that makes sense. But Luke, the first month in the pre-launch, I'm going to create my social media pages. And then it's going to say what I'm going to do. It's going to post stuff. And look at that, your prizes there, 10%. And look, I said I'm going to set myself a budget of 50 quid for the free jar of honey. And I'm just going to post images then online. Not going to cost me anything that isn't there at that point there. And then lastly, down here, obviously I've got the two ones here. I've got a banner. So I'm going to get some banners printed, £50 per banner, right, as you see there. I'm going to get 4 printed, and obviously I'm going to put them in the town. So you can see that. And I'm going to do it later on, right at the end. And lastly, I'm going to get my website designed for 1,500 quid. And then I'm going to go the same offer about the voucher, the 10% off basically there. So what I've done then is calculated my costs. So I've got £2,000 going out in that month, 500 quid there. Right, so I've got £50. Obviously, I've allowed for this 50 quid for this honey thing over here, which I've allowed for. And that gives me a total marketing cost of £2,800. Right. Does that make sense so far where the numbers have come from or not? Like in the sense of where I've got that 2,800 quid from?
Yeah.
Right, because what I'm going to do now is I would now get really clever and I'd go back to that figure you got over here, the one where we got the spreadsheet before. And I would go into that where it says marketing there, and I'd then go, right, marketing cost 2,800, like that. And then I would look back at my cash flow. And if you think about my cash flow, my marketing spend really was predominantly there. It was actually at that point there, and it wasn't over here. So if anything, I've got to bring that back down again, like that, so it resembles it. But look at that, it still works. It's just I've now tied it all in. It's now comprehensive because those figures there and this cash flow all relate to the marketing that you've got planned in your business in that document over there. And that is where quite a bit of calculations come from. That's what you'd be writing about after. But you can stick these tables into your plan, boy. So I would actually copy that table into my plan. That would be my marketing, and I'd probably write about it in more detail, but I'd actually put that in my plan. There is nothing wrong with that to go in. There is one final thing you could do on Excel. If you're into your Excel stuff and you're doing it, you are meant to start thinking about when you've got a timeline for your marketing and you've got your accounts and you've got your numbers and hopefully the business works. If it doesn't work, we'll have to think about that one. You could start to look potentially at planning out the action plan. As in other words, when is it going to actually launch? And, what do you need to do? So to do that, you imagine I've used another one of my favorite Excels. I love Excel, boy. And I'll send you these templates, everybody. Don't worry about that. So what I've created here is you probably say years 2020, 2021, 2022. By the way, you can set your own deadline. It doesn't have to be as long as that, by the way. It can be less than that. It can be longer than that. And what I've done is I've listed the actions down here, the things that I think I need to do for my business to be successful. Right, so I put a list of all the things I think I need to do to make my business successful. Again, you might have other ones. You probably will buy. You're going to have your own sort of things. You have less or you might have more. But I'm not going to, get stressy over that. All I've done then is literally coloured in when it's going to be done by. So I'm going to research my idea by then. My GCSEs are going to take all this time over here. So up to there. Then I've said I'm going to obviously find an appropriate location. I'm going to apply for the bank loan and set up the social media accounts. Sign the lease the month after. Order the equipment, install the equipment, and then obviously I've got this thing where the bees are going to come in and be arrived. And what I've done here is there's a reason why I could write about this one. Who wants to open a honey shop in winter? Everybody's going to want honey in the sort of spring and summer. So that's why the bees get to settle in the hive. Then I get to advertise and train my staff. Then I get to set my marketing. Obviously, remember the marketing plan that we mentioned? I'm going to do my marketing and advertising at that point there. And then the shop's going to open. Boy, you could go further. You could put other things in there if you want to go further on with that. But that's ample, trust me. That's like, ultimately, I'm talking to you as distinction here, and obviously a high-level distinction, which is good, because that's what it should be, and it should be realistic, and this is what you would do for realism. I will guarantee you, if you produce something like this, not only would this be suitable for your coursework, a bank manager would be like, yes, there's enough comprehension there to understand it. That's what you're ultimately going to do. When you've got all this data, obviously, and your plan is comprehensive, you'll then pitch it to me. It's a plan like Dragon's Den, where you'll do the presentation. And I know the next question is, when's that? Well, we don't know. We might even have to do it virtually. You might have to do a virtual presentation.
Is there still actual coursework deadlines when we're not at school?
You know what, Angel? That's a really good question, because the exam board actually have changed the rules, because when they're a bit picky on work outside the classroom, and they're now allowing it. So yeah, they're sort of expecting you to do it, if that makes sense. However, I don't see that we can do the presentation, if that makes sense. I'll be totally honest, I don't know. I think we did a plan, and we get these plans to be absolutely amazing. But presentation really should be a presentation, as far as I'm concerned.
Isn't the curriculum suspended?
It is, for anybody who's in school, if that makes sense. It's a bit weird. So, if you're in school, the curriculum is suspended. However, if you're outside of school, we're expected to set you work, and the exam board themselves are now saying you can do work outside. However, that said, what you're ending up with is, I mean, your class has been actually quite good way. I've got there's probably about 12 of you who are like making rapid progress on this. There are obviously some who I've not heard from. So, but ultimately, you just got to work on the idea of look after yourself, haven't you? At the end of the day. Because next year you're going to have an exam where you are going to have to do the finance anyway. We won't have time to go back through. Well, we're not going to have time to get bogged down in this coursework. That's the problem. So that's why I'm trying to make sure your coursework's bang on. Just do as much as you can. You know what? The presentation, if we get a chance, I don't know when we're going to be back in school. If we get a chance, you can start putting the presentation together, as in like the PowerPoint. But I don't know if we're going to do the remote presentation, because if I'm being honest, I'd rather in school we'll find a way of doing it next year if we have to. Because it doesn't seem right to do it virtually. But yeah, I don't know. It's your guess is as good as mine, boy. At least you're not in a situation where the year 11s are in, where they had their exam results yesterday, and for their exam they did, but they don't know whether that exam's good. Someone will obviously want to reset it, but they can't. So does the first count and take be the only grade they're going to get? I don't know. We will see. Does that answer your question, or I just sort of sidetracked your question? Yeah. So I wasn't sure whether I'd sidetracked it, because I can sometimes go around the question. But yeah. In all honesty, Angel, like I say, it's a bit, I don't know as much as you know neither sometimes, which isn't good, because I know you want me to give you all the answers. But yeah, so that's really what you got to do for me. In theory, make sure that sheet there, and I'll email these over to you, I'll put them in an email to you in a minute. These two sheets here are literally like your Bible. They make all of the calculations done for finances for you. Well, has that been useful or not?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good then. I like the. Is there any other questions you've got? By just chuck it by. Feel free to chuck them in. That's the other idea of having like a sort of webinar. If you've got anything you want to ask me, chuck it in.
Shanice does.
What's Shanice worried about?
She wants to know if the survey goes on the end of the business, like the tables for the different ideas.
Yes.
Or if it goes on the final plan.
In fairness, yeah, it's a good question. That's why. In fairness, you should probably have the questionnaire idea that she's done. She should put it at the end of those tables, that research. And then in
Yeah.
the market research bit, just refer back to it basically, like like refer back to her primary research told her that. If that makes sense, she shouldn't need to put it all back in again. She might want to graph it and put some of the graphs in, for example, if she wants to put any graphs in. It depends again. Depends how far you want to go with it. But if you remember when I showed you that PowerPoint, which I got, which hang on, I can show you again. So I can share this with Shanice actually afterwards. If I let me just go back to the slide here. So I'm on my PowerPoint now. If you remember, the way that I showed you today is like she might want to refer to it, but she doesn't need to put it all in. I mean, that by the way is me going like silly because obviously I'd love to, let's be honest, you'd love to put loads of market research in, but realistically, all Shanice really needs to do is make sure she's got it in there somewhere. She summarises the secondary research, that's quite important, and that she does make reference to the primary research she's done. So she does reference the primary research, and then at the end, she just says what it means, because obviously that's where distinction comes from.
Okay, thank you.
If she is stuck on that way, obviously tell her to webinar me in or whatever, or speak. I mean, I'll share this video with her as well, so you can look at that as well, if that makes sense. Is there any other questions anybody else has got, or you've got?
Not for me.
Anything for Amy, or is she okay?
I'm alright.
Okay. You can never tell with Amy. Amy's like, oh yeah, all right, yeah. If you ask Amy any questions, she's always all right. How you finding working from home, Amy? All right?
Yeah.
I thought you would be. Yeah. But no, in fairness, that's really where the finances come from, because I don't think we need, before we worry about digging into some of these other bits around here, by the way, I think let's try and get your finances sorted. I mean, you've got this sort of thing already. You've started to look at what you need. So don't, like that's there is basically, if you think about the slide there, that slide there is exactly what I'm getting you to collect together in this sheet here on the upper part there. So that's what that bit is there. So knowing your sources obviously is useful, but that's all that numbers have come from. This sheet is your Bible, and everything comes together from this point here. At this point now, you don't need to understand 100% of where these numbers come from. In the sense of like, how do I get all these numbers? I mean, it is useful to know that startup costs are one-off costs. They're good for knowing that their operating costs are running costs, so they go on. It is good to know that revenue is money going into the business. The cost of sales is the cost to make the product. Your gross profit, by the way, is your revenue minus your cost of sales. And obviously, that is your profit you make on every product you sell. Your net profit, the one you get to keep at the end of it all, is the gross profit take away all your other operating costs, less that one there, because that's come out already. And like I say, your break even is how many items you have to sell to make a profit. So in other words, well, to get a big fat zero basically before you make a profit. So 13,489 in my business there. Remember, cash flow is not profit, it's money going into and out of a business. That's one of the most common mistakes people make. And obviously, an overdraft is a short-term loan that we just talked about a minute ago. Those are probably the key words you've got. They'll come back next year in the finance exam, by the way, but you know what? It's probably worth having them now. And everything else is fairly straightforward, I think. Right. Okay, that sounds like I've sorted you two out anyway for the moment. And my webinar session has got another 3 minutes, so and I don't think anybody's going to dip in, are they? So I think it's been useful. Are you two going to come and play my quiz tomorrow, by the way? I've got my quiz Friday after quiz.
What?
Oh, have you not seen the email?
I don't think so.
Oh, maybe
No.
maybe your tutors haven't sent it out. I've got I do a Friday afternoon quiz with my tutor group, and they said to invite the whole school. So I sent it to the whole school to invite them. I didn't know you haven't. I'll send it as a separate email then. You can come and get involved in the quiz if you want to.
Okay.
It's like the big quiz. Everybody gets involved. It normally has like about 20 people in it, in fairness. I did last week. So I'm sure it'll grow even bigger still.
Okay.
Yes, famous last words. Right. So you got no other questions?
Nope.
No.
Right. Okay. My first job then now is I will send this over to email. I'll email these three sheets over to you. And then obviously I'll send you a copy to the link to this video when it's uploaded as well, so you can look back at it if you need to.
Okay.
I'll copy Shanice into that as well, send these out to Shanice as well.
Yeah. Please.
Okay. No problems. That sounds good with me. So I suppose, you know what, let's end it here, shall we? So on a positive, and I might see you two tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks.
Right, see you later. Keep buzzing.